up, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome, and as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. And today we are in the hole of spoilers to rank Marvel Netflix seasons, baby. Not shows, seasons. So we're taking all the seasons of Marvel Netflix thus far. You know, we're gonna colloquially call this Phase 1 of Marvel Netflix, and we are going to rank them from worst to best. Okay, DeepBoyce, this isn't very hard for us at the bottom. Okay, I'm just gonna say that. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna put it out there.
Yeah, it's gonna be controversial. Some of the picks in this list. I don't know if the latter half or like the lower picks are gonna be more controversial or the higher picks, but we'll see once we release the video. But we got some hot takes here. It's gonna get real spicy.
So there's been 6 seasons of Marvel Netflix shows. There've been 2 seasons of Daredevil. There's been 1 season of Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, The Defenders, and Iron Fist. 6 seasons total. So at number 6, coming in at the bottom, coming in at last, we've got the man himself, the corporate executive or the corporate chairman, Danny Rand. Iron Fist season 1 coming in last, dogs. Dead last.
Iron
Fist season 1.
Iron Timber Fist over here.
Iron Timber Fist, man.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Iron Fist has been a divisive character, you know, not just after his debut in Iron Fist, but also, you know, his appearance in The Defenders, where, you know, I will say he was better. He was done better,
yes.
You know, especially in his scenes with Luke Cage. But, you know, in terms of Iron Fist, I mean, one thing I feel that was a big issue was just that it was it just felt like it was all over the place in terms of its direction and in terms of its villains. I mean, the Meacham family is probably where I feel there's the biggest issue. I mean, Harold Meacham, definitely an antagonist, definitely somebody who, you know, upped the creep factor. I have no problem with, you know, his, you know, the portrayal of Harold Meacham. What I do have a problem with is the fact that, you know, Grant and Joy Meacham got a huge spotlight in the show. And listen, Joy Meacham, she's a character in the comics and even a potential love interest, if I'm not mistaken, for Danny Rand. But even the arcs for these characters, I mean, Joy, by the end of the season, you know, she clearly sees that her father, you know, having come back to life, you know, she sees her father's alive. She sees that he's crazy and he's not the same. And you know, when he ends up dying, she's all of a sudden wants to like have this villainous streak and come after Danny Rand and, you know, work in tandem with her boy, with his former friend Davos, who is the Steel Serpent, who becomes Steel Serpent in Steel Serpent in the comics. But I just mean like Iron Fist just felt all over the place. The Meachams to me were one of the biggest things that I felt was a problem. But what was your problem with Iron Fist season 1? Like, why do you rank that at the bottom?
Yeah, it just it was rather unspectacular. You know, I felt that there were certain things that were interesting, certain beginnings of ideas that were interesting, and I felt that they just kind of focused too much on other things that made the season and just kind of had them plotting too much and just focusing too much on things that were the weak points of the show. I mean, not to get too much into it, but well, I think the more interesting aspects of Iron Fist is his conflict in actually being Iron Fist and him being the defender of Kunlun and the aspect of the hand. And you know the role that Colleen Wing plays and Bakudo, her sensei, and then Davos coming in, and all those aspects I thought were really interesting. But they were really the part that fell the flattest was the whole Rand Industries plotline with, like you said, the Meachams and the father. What's his name? Harold Meacham, right?
Harold
Meacham, yeah. And while there were interesting things about him, they spent like 3, almost 4 episodes with this plotline about it, you know, people not believing that he's Danny Rand and him wanting to reconnect, and it was just, to me, not interesting at all. What I really eventually found interesting was the role of the Hand, how the Hand was, you know, warring amongst each other, Bakudo and Madame Gao. They should have spent more time trying to get into Kunlun or that idea of protecting Kunlun, as opposed to, all this melodrama between Danny Rand wanting to reclaim his life and having PTSD, which, some of those things are aspects of his character, but we have to, for us to really care about how he feels, like this PTSD, we have to actually care about the character, and they never gave us that chance to really get close to the Danny Rand character for us to feel bad about him. And the reason Iron Fist is even here, and Luke Cage, I'll even say, is because they want to put them together as heroes for hire. Like they're a package together. And Iron Fist with Luke Cage, Iron Fist is more laid back and silly, and that he's a jokester, and that's the thing that typically people want to see, at least when they pick up an Iron Fist comic. Either they want to see the two of them vibe off of each other, or they want to see Danny Rand doing some kung fu off in Kunlun, finding some some 70s style kung fu action going on. But they didn't really give us much of that, and the choreography also was rather inconsistent. It was hard to like a lot of the characters, and obviously I know the big elephant in the room was the whole whitewashing thing, but that was really the least of the problems of that show.
It's not even whitewashing because the character is white.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that in the past in a previous video, but that issue aside, that was a big issue, but I think if Iron Fist was ultimately good, that would have trumped that whole conversation. You know what I mean? I don't even think that conversation would have. I think that conversation would have been kind of left.
Yeah,
out there. I mean, whitewashing is a huge problem in Hollywood. Just not in particular with this show. I don't think that's the case with Iron Fist. There are inherent problems with the origins of Iron Fist and them. The whole white savior, trope. But I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. But regardless of all that, I mean, I think it was one of the most watched Netflix shows, Iron Fist.
Yeah,
I know people hated it a lot.
It was one of the most watched Netflix shows. Yeah, it was definitely, top in the charts for Netflix. And, not to dwell too much on Iron Fist, but, there were some clear problems, like you said, with the choreography. I mean, Finn Jones, even in a previous interview, had said that, he didn't have much time to train in martial arts before he started working on the show. And it was even to the point where he was actually doing training sets in between shooting, you know what I'm saying? So in between him actually filming scenes, he was actually practicing, and it showed. He looked very awkward doing some of the moves, and the choreography wasn't really great unless it was Colleen Wing fighting, or damn near any other character. Bakudo even was fine, but Colleen Wing in particular, she was top notch.
Yes,
in terms of the choreography for her. But Iron Fist, way at the bottom. DeepBoyce, who is next? Who's coming in at number 5?
Number 5 is the most recent entry in the Marvel Netflix shows, and that is Marvel's The Defenders.
Might surprise some people.
Yeah, might surprise some people. I mean, it was a shorter season, which I think is not a bad move, because a lot of these Netflix shows kind of, they linger on a little too long. But even with a shorter 8-episode season, it was really kind of the middle chunk that, at least for me personally, was the best, when the characters were vibing off of each other, when they were fighting against the bad guys. But most of everything else was either a letdown or a bit unremarkable. I mean, when you look at the Hand, from how they presented them in Daredevil season 1, they were total badasses. I mean, you really felt like they were a threat in Daredevil season 1.
Not even just, they've built them up over 3 collective seasons.
Yes.
Daredevil season 1. Daredevil, I mean, remember Nobu in Daredevil season 1? He was a beast. And then he came back in Daredevil season 2. And then they had a 3rd season to build him up in Iron Fist. And let's be honest, the 5 Fingers of the Hand were largely underwhelming. For the Defenders. I mean, I didn't feel like they were a threat at all. And even their ultimate plan, which was to find some dragon bones and make some immortality juice. I mean, it just... To me, I just felt like the Hand didn't feel threatening. Yeah. And there were even moments, for example, Sawande, who was he was the one who was described as the drug trafficker or the weapons dealer. I think it was weapons dealer.
Yeah.
Luke Cage essentially captures him off screen and just brings him to the headquarters. Oh yeah, I captured him. You get no exposition about. You got nothing to show how that fight broke down. He's making all these threats and talking mad smack. He ends up getting his head chopped off by stick. Bakudo went out like a little biatch.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't feel like they, with the exception of Madame Gao, I didn't feel like any of them were intimidating, and I felt that not giving the defenders an adversary that made you feel the stakes, especially since they try to keep most of the the plans for the hand under wraps for so long. I felt like they were alluding to like, oh, they're like planning something that's a big hole in the ground, and it just kind of turned out to be like, yeah, they just want some immortality. Like I didn't relate to it. Also, didn't really relate to the twist with Elektra. I know that Elektra's crazy, and in the comics she's crazy, but I just felt like the whole thing where she's like, yeah, I just don't want to die again, and I just want to be with Matthew forever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what? Like it just seemed like a stretch for her character. I know they kind of alluded to the fact that she's kind of gray, but it just seemed like her like saying, "Oh, I'm gonna kill this hand leader and take over the hand." Like I was like, that's a little extreme.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. And she was resurrected by the hand and was evil while she was with the hand, but
yes,
she was more of like an enforcer. Like I think it would have worked better with her as just a physical beast, as opposed to now I'm running the show, now I'm taking care of this, and I'm killing all the hand. Like it doesn't make sense to kind of prop it up, especially over so much time, and then just so quickly just tear all that apart, like in like a couple episodes.
Right. It was also a little bit crazy that they never explained exactly what Black Sky was. Like I kept waiting for them to say like, what exactly is Black Sky? Like, why does bringing back this person give this Black Sky person? And she's not the only Black Sky, because remember Stick killed one of the Black Skies in one of the Daredevil seasons. Little bald boy who kind of looked like some type of holy child or whatever. Yeah. But I still don't know like what exactly Black Sky is and what constitutes a Black Sky. How are you determined to be a Black Sky? You know what I'm saying? Like I just felt like there wasn't enough exposition. But like as you said, Defenders was best when the team was interacting with each other. I wish they were given a viable threat. And that's the thing that I just never felt like, and maybe that's just us. But I just never felt like there was any real threat to them. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, no, totally agree.
So to the Defenders team. But anyway, moving on at number 4. At number 4, Sweet Christmas, y'all. we have Luke Cage, everybody. Luke Cage coming in at number 4. So for me, I will honestly say Luke Cage was a revelation. It was great. Like I enjoyed Luke Cage, and I also want to preface this by saying like from here on out, from like here to the rest of the list, to the top thing on the list, all of these shows were great. It was really like Iron Fist was just like far from the other shows in terms of like quality. Right now we're getting into like some stuff that it's a toss up in terms of quality. But for me, Luke Cage, the problem was the second half of the season. Cottonmouth was great in the first half with Mariah and Shades, but Diamondback, bro. Diamondback was very much a miss situation with me. It was the first half of the season was hit and Diamondback was miss. I never felt like he was threatening. And that first scene where he pops up and he's just walking down the street with like this huge sniper rifle or whatever, and he's coming after Luke Cage. I honestly thought he was a henchman because they built Diamondback as this guy who has infinite resources and who Cottonmouth was, kind of afraid of. Mm-hmm. And then he comes in. I understand the idea, if you want it done well, do it yourself type of thing. But like, the guy comes in, he's like, I never saw him wield any type of like resources or authority that made me think this Diamondback guy is really what they build him as. Because he was hyped throughout the whole first half of Luke Cage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
And he ultimately underwhelmed, man. I know you had problems with Luke Cage too, so I mean, what was your issues with Luke Cage, and I know Diamondback in particular too. You had issues with.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. What I didn't like was this sort of cockamamie backstory that they threw in there about Luke Cage and Diamondback being half brothers or something because their father was a minister, and then some other blah blah blah. Like I don't understand where that came from or what was the point of that. It didn't really add anything, but just take up time to the show. And I think really where it started to kind of drop for me was when he went to go see Dr. Erskine after he got shot. I felt that...
Not Erskine. I think Erskine is the doctor from
Captain America?
Captain America movies.
Yeah.
We don't need to remember.
The guy that experimented on him when he was in jail and gave him his powers.
Yeah.
They spent too much time. I mean, they had flashbacks here and there about when he was in jail, but they spent too much time with how he got out of jail, and then some other sort of I guess it was like a love story, small little love story they had while he was in jail. I felt that kind of lingered.
Oh, he's at Seagate prison.
Yeah, that lingered way too much. And I think they missed a bit of an opportunity because that doctor is also responsible for experimenting on a couple other people, which also resulted in other people having kind of unique powers themselves.
Yeah. By the way, his name just came to me, Dr. Bernstein, if I'm not mistaken. Or Burstein.
Yes.
Burstein. Yeah.
But, I mean, what happened there didn't entirely add up. I mean, I know they need to figure out a way to get that bullet out of this guy who's like bulletproof. But it didn't get any better from there. Yeah.
I mean, one minor thing just to wrap up the Luke Cage aspect was just, this is very, very minor. Very, 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 very minor. This is just kind of a pet peeve. I just didn't like the fact that he wasn't a native New Yorker. Like, he was from the South. I'm like, yo, Luke Cage is born in Harlem, bro.
True.
Like, that is something that is innate to his DNA. Like, I don't need you. I know, like, Marvel focuses a lot on New York City. And, I'm sure that there was an inclination to maybe even remove that, from, being the staple of Marvel going forward. But I just felt like Luke Cage not being an inherent New Yorker. And, people could, I know that there's technicalities behind that. People are like, well, and, many people come to New York and they're not originally from New York, but they become New Yorkers. Yeah, I don't want to hear that. Luke Cage is born and raised in New York City. Yeah. Give me that. You could have sent him to Rikers instead of Seagate. Like, there was no reason to move him to the South.
Yeah, I know.
And,
or upstate. It could have been the Sing Sing or something like that. I mean,
there you go. Could have been upstate. It didn't have to be like him being from the South. I just thought that was really weird having him come from the South. I was like, especially being in New York, that kind of bugged me a little bit.
Yeah, I know some people that are probably listening not from New York. They're probably like, who the hell cares? But as New Yorkers, we have a monopoly on a lot of these characters. But I mean, come on, it's not just New York. He's from Harlem. That it's a big.
Yes.
That is a very big deal. And I guess what they were trying to do is to trying to throw this sort of like plantation vibe to it, almost like he was like in a chain gang or something like that. Especially when he had escaped and he was running, through the fields and all that. I guess maybe that was what they were trying to evoke, but that was just not necessary.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing with that one, but to anyone who's a detractor, it's like, well, doesn't have to be centered around New York. Marvel headquarters is in New York. That's why, and Marvel, the people that created like Marvel, like characters, they were all based in New York, which is why New York is always at the basis of New York of Marvel stories and Marvel characters. Like, it is innate. Like, some of these characters their DNA is based in New York City. Like, it's like him being from Harlem is part of the DNA of the so, like, you can take almost any other character, like Tony Stark, for example. It's okay to move him out to the West Coast like they did for Iron Man. Fine, because originally it was actually supposed to be based in New York, but they switched it up. That's fine. But Luke Cage is from Harlem. Like, he's from like that area, like or from the New York area. I think he might have actually been born in the Bronx, maybe. I'm not sure.
But that's still important. I mean, there's a big distinction between Harlem, Bronx, Brooklyn, and just the South. I mean, the South that's just a huge area. I mean, it doesn't have as much it doesn't hold as much weight to the origins of the character if you just say, oh, he's from the South. Than as opposed to if you were to say, oh, he's from Harlem, or he's from Canarsie, or he's from the South Bronx, or Hell's Kitchen. It's important. It's really important to the character.
He was born in Harlem, to be clear. But this guy, like, you're right. You being from these neighborhoods, and we can speak to this because we are from New York City. You're from Washington Heights phenomenon. No, not Washington Heights. You're from
Upper West Side.
What? The Upper West Side. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. Like, it's in our DNA. These different places. Like, you repped a certain pride about being where you were from, and I repped a certain pride from where I was from. And to a certain extent, you even talk different. There's even different lingo in some of the boroughs.
Yeah.
And just the fact that making him a Southerner kind of took me, that kind of made me like, I mean, he's not out here with like, you know, country accent or anything, but you could very much tell that Luke Cage he doesn't have that like New York style to him. If I may say so myself.
Yeah.
He doesn't have like the New York way of talking. And that may have been a change based on who Mike Coulter is, to be honest with you. And they may have gone with that so as not to make him step out of his comfort zone. I don't know where Mike Coulter is from.
I think he's from South Carolina.
There you go. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
But he was, I guess, classically trained in acting, so that's why he talks the way he talks.
Yeah. He was, you're right. He was born in Columbia, South Carolina. So, you know, but, you know, he went to Rutgers University. So, I mean, he's kind of in the area. But, yeah, you're right. He doesn't evoke New Yorker to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on from Luke Cage. Number 3, Luke Cage's love interest from the comics, Jessica Jones. Now, this may be a little bit low for some people, but as I said earlier, and I wanted to make this clear, like, this part of the list is really just like, we're just like, it's super hard to rank these, you know, in terms of our favorites. But Jessica Jones was a fantastic show. On any given day, I could put Jessica Jones at number 1 on this list. I loved Jessica Jones. Yeah. Loved it. I loved the psychological story. I loved the fact that Jessica Jones is a mess. I love the fact that, you know, she has been through so much trauma. And every day, getting up every day for her is hard. Despite how strong she is, it is incredibly difficult for her to get up every day. And, you know, seeing her with her problems with alcohol, her issues with alcohol. I mean, she's clearly an alcoholic. That's not even, you know, up for, you know, debate. But just to see her deal with the emotional trauma, what the Purple Man did to her. You know, he sexually abused her. And he manipulated her. And, you know, he took advantage of, you know, everything about her. Her body, her mind, everything. And Jessica Jones, to see her overcome that through the course of the season. And the fact that, you know, it kind of had like a psychological thriller mystery vibe to it. Jessica Jones was really fantastic. It's just, you know, we'll go into, we have our obvious number 2s and 2 and 1 based on, you know, process of elimination. But, I mean, tell me about Jessica Jones and how you felt about it, boys.
Yeah, I mean, I was honestly surprised that people didn't like her or had bad things to say about Jessica Jones. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I feel like it's the most easily accessible show out of all of these for people that don't really watch superhero content, because it's more of, I guess, more of a detective story in a sense, because she's a private investigator. And it deals with, I'd say, very real issues. I mean, yeah, the Purple Man, you know, has some crazy powers of persuasion, but, you know, almost everyone can relate to being in some sort of toxic relationship at any type of degree. Sure. And you know, I guess some people found her insufferable, but I kind of understand, like, I got it where she went through some very hard times, and, you know, I can kind of relate, and maybe you can also understand, Hazy, and other people that are listening. But, you know, after you spend months or years going through just day by day something difficult, even if you survive and you make it past it, you're just kind of like grumpy, like you're just kind of defeated, and it takes you a while to get your spirit back up. And that's kind of what I got out of that character of Jessica Jones. She went through something extremely terrible. And, you know, it's like Patsy Walker, her friend, as she says in Defenders, where she's the only one. She says something to the effect of Jessica Jones is able to make a victory seem like a loss, I think.
Yeah.
And it's
referring to her ultimately killing Purple Man.
And it's just that people trying to cheer you on, tell you, hey, this is good, things are good, is even more annoying, because the way you feel, it takes time for that to change. Like, yes, you won, you may have killed the bad guy, but it doesn't erase what's happened in the past. You have to live with that and deal with that every single day. And that's why she's kind of cranky.
yeah, she's definitely to say she's kind of cranky is being nice, man, because she is really, really not pleasant.
Yes.
But I mean,
Luke Cage found it kind of pleasant.
Oh, come on, man.
Oh, they found each other pleasant.
Luke Cage did like her. They did have some chemistry in that show. That's actually one of the positives of Jessica Jones. I love the introduction of Luke Cage.
Oh, yeah.
But another thing I kind of wanted to bring up real quick about Jessica Jones before we move into the top two, is I like that they kind of covered themes of addiction. Jessica Jones, her addiction to alcohol, Malcolm, his addiction to drugs, the Purple Man, his addiction to manipulation, the character Will, who's essentially the character Nuke from the comics, his addiction to these pills that give him strength. I loved how these characters who've been through these emotional issues, became addicted to their own drugs, their own forms of coping.
Yeah.
I just love that theme kind of echoed throughout the show. That almost everybody in the show, almost all the main characters were addicted to something in some way, and they're using that as a coping mechanism for a greater trauma or a greater greater wound that they were trying to cover up.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving into the top two, DeepBoyce. Let's just put it out there. Okay, we're gonna have a joint conversation about this. I'm gonna say number 2 right now. Number 2 is Daredevil season 2, and number 1 is Daredevil season 1. So let's just have a joint conversation about both those seasons. Why we ranked season 1 above season 2? Why we ranked it above Jessica Jones and Luke Cage? Because I feel like those 4 are the ones that we can unequivocally say those were really good, and it is damn near difficult to pick a number 1 out of that for a lot of people. I feel like there are some people who love Luke Cage a lot. I feel like there's some people who love Jessica Jones a lot. Let's feel like there's some people who love Daredevil a lot, and there are 3 people who like Iron Fist a lot. But at the end of the day, Daredevil season 2 at number 2, Daredevil season 1 at number 1 for us. Talk to me about Daredevil, man. How do we figure out this ranking? Where do we stand? How easy was this? How hard was it? Talk to me.
It wasn't very hard in my opinion. I guess it was harder deciding whether it's to put season 1 at number 1 or season 2 at number 2. But we'll get to that into a bit. Daredevil season 2 is our number 2 entry, and just Daredevil as a whole is the one that really kind of started it all. It made all these other entries in the list possible, and it really hit it out of the park with that first season. There was just a lot of buzz around that first season coming out, and it was super exciting. I barely slept that weekend when that first season dropped. I was just watching episode after episode after episode after episode.
That began the tradition of DeepBoyce watching episodes at 3 a.m. because on the East Coast, that's when these Netflix episodes drop. At 3 a.m., even though he had work the next day.
Listen, it's not my fault. They're out here disrespecting me, disrespecting us East Coasters here. All right, where's Stan Lee make his claim? New York. Where Jack Kirby make his claim? New York.
You right.
Where's Marvel headquarters? New York. Daredevil, Hell's Kitchen. That's New York.
Marvel, if you out here listening, we do need a better release time for our Marvel Netflix series, man. We got to go through a whole day of work on Friday, just to get home and watch these shows. Come on, Netflix. It's not
terrible.
Californians out here, they watching. They can it's reasonable to believe you can watch a show at midnight, California, and still get up for work. You can watch 1 or 2 episodes and still get up for work in a reasonable time.
Man, these Californians are too chill, and they don't go to work on Fridays. They just take the day off, just chilling. Anyway,
Daredevil season 2, season 1. For me, I'll honestly say on any given day, honestly, I could rank Jessica Jones even a little bit higher. But for me, season 1 and season 2 stand out because I just think Daredevil is just so well done in terms of the characterization of Matt Murdock and the action scenes. It really, I got to be honest, it may sound fickle, but the action scenes, that's what drew me in. Daredevil's choreography. The first episode where you see him, in the proto Daredevil suit, where he's wearing the all black and he's kind of got the head, the bandana covering the top half of his face. He mutilates some dude easily, breaking bones out there. I just loved the fight scenes. I love the grittiness and the fact that this man is a devout Catholic, but he's out there running the streets and beating people's asses. No questions asked. Now, why I rank season 1 above season 2? 100% the presence of the villain, Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, ranks season 1 over season 2. Season 2, the second half, making Nobu a mere henchman from season 1 kind of the main like adversary for Daredevil. I get it. It was to show the Hand as a viable threat by bringing back, a villain who had already died. But for me, the hole that was left from, Kingpin not being the main villain was felt. And I mean, the idea that they made Kingpin a sympathetic character and also like ridiculously intimidating. I mean, early on in the season, if I'm not mistaken, it might have been episode 4, but he smashes some guy's head between a car door, and you see his head. Like, they don't show the head, but you see like from the ground, this dude's head turns into mush.
Yeah. And
you see his temper and how he just immediately just calms down right after that. It was just so well done, the duality between Daredevil and Kingpin, and the creation of their rivalry, their disdain for each other. Yeah. So well done, man. So well done. But that's for me the reason why season 1 is above season 2.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, because they set up in season 2. They continue to set up the Kingpin as a villain, and sort of like his demise. But they also have Punisher as a bit of an antagonist. But they end both those storylines early to suddenly throw the Hand right back into there to have some sort of last hurrah. Maybe as an excuse to just have them fight a whole bunch of ninjas. And
also the setup for Elektra and
true.
The position she would take in the Defenders.
True. And I thought Elektra was well done in season 2. I think up until like maybe episode 8 or so.
Yeah.
Daredevil season 2 for me was probably better, but the way it ended,
same.
Yeah, the way it ended wasn't as strong as season 1. Like it didn't leave me wanting more the same way season 1 did. I mean, it did leave me wanting more, but I didn't have the same feeling.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like, we were still hype about the first, like, let's say, 2/3 of the show, but it did fall off a little bit near the end. A little bit.
Yeah, like it.
But you're talking about falling off from like a 95, out of 100 to being, a 91 out of 100. You know what I mean? But it was felt. Whereas Daredevil season 1 kind of had a dip, like in like around 9 or 10 or 10 and 11, episode 12. I think it was maybe episode 10 and 11 where him and Foggy were arguing with each other. But it definitely ended on a really great note, especially him showing the suit, him getting a name, officially being called Daredevil.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Totally agree.
But anyway, guys, where do you rank your Marvel Netflix shows? Do you agree with our list? Do you disagree? Where would you rank, Daredevil versus Jessica Jones versus Luke Cage versus Iron Fist versus Defenders? Let us know in the comments below. By all means, support the Spectacular Spoiler League. Hit that subscribe button and join up the Spectacular Spoiler League so you can hang out with us in the Hall of Spoilers each and every video that we drop. Turn on them notifications so you can be notified about when these videos drop, and you could be in on the conversation nice and early so we can see what you guys got to say. And in addition, hit us with a like, man. Likes help us spread the word, help us get this video out there, and help us do our thing. So thank you guys for the support. As always, we'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Peace.